If you're watching this video, it's likely that you're in your teens or early 20s and you're trying to get your parents to trust you more. Maybe right now your parents don't trust you as much as you want them to. Whenever you want to hang out with friends or do anything simple besides going to school, it seems like that they're always on you and they always have a lot of questions about what you want to do, right? Maybe they don't take you seriously, right? You try to give them advice on stuff, how they should do stuff, and they just view you as a kid and they don't really take your word for anything, right? This is a thing that honestly I feel like a lot of people go through in life, right? I went through it myself, and there's some things that I did when I was in my teens and even developing in my early 20s that things I did that really helped make my parents trust me a lot more. So this video, I'm gonna teach you guys, I'm gonna teach you how to get more trust from your parents. And once you get more trust from your parents and they view you as more of an adult, right? Like even if you're a teen, they start viewing you as a upcoming adult and they view you as more mature. Life is gonna be a lot more easier for you. You're gonna be able to more easily go out and hang out with your friends, right? On the weekends or after school, during the nighttime, if you wanna go have dinner with them or something, it's gonna be a lot easier to do things like that because if you follow the things I'm gonna tell you in this video, these things are gonna build up on each other and they're just gonna view you as a more mature adult and know that you just kind of you got it in your life, right? You know how to handle yourself and they can trust you to go out in the world on your own, right? And it's such a really good feeling. So let's get into the first thing you can do to have your parents trust you more, right? So easily the first thing you could start doing right now, whether you're in teens or early 20s, is start getting good grades in school. So, and you might be surprised why, good grades in school, why would that matter much, right? Well, it matters a lot because, if you're getting good grades in school, that means, there's a level of diligence that it takes from somebody that it would take, from anybody to get good grades, right? That means you're going to your classes on time, you're attending all your classes. That means you're doing the homework outside of class, right? If you're having trouble on something, you take extra time on yourself to learn the concepts and materials that you're struggling with, right? If you're in middle school or high school, getting good grades is pretty important, right? Especially if you're like in high school and all your grades are going to be factored into your GPA. That's going to really affect what colleges you can get into, right? If you're in college, it's even more important, honestly, because now you're paying for those classes and to get that degree. And why are you getting your degree? To get a job eventually, right? You want to have a decent paying job, right? So that's why you're in college, to get yourself more education. So make sure you're doing the same thing there as well. You're studying hard for your classes, you're really spending that extra time to be diligent. It's a lot of self-control as well. Like, you could be, say it's Friday night, right? And you have a big paper due on Monday, right? And Friday night, and it's your friends invite you out to hang out with them, and honestly a lot of people would actually take up that offer to hang out with their friends, right? And in this example, let's just say you're a bit behind on your paper as well, right? A lot of people would put the pencil down or put their keyboard down, right? They're shut off their laptop, and then they'll just have some fun, right? And then maybe they come back late and you know, whatever, and parents get mad, and then you wake up the next more day late as well. You didn't really get to start your paper, right? So that's just an example, right? But if you can start to get good grades, which it isn't really hard to do, all you gotta really do is just show up to your class and do the homework. That's really it, right? Is it gonna be tough sometimes to learn the concepts when you don't understand it? Yeah, for sure. But if it was easy, then it wouldn't be worth anything, right? So that's the first step I can give you, is to start getting better grades. If you don't have good grades currently, if you get a lot of C's and D's and barely any B's, let's try to get that, bring yourself up to, at least an A/B student. That's a good place, right? So that's the first thing you can do to help, your parents, get them to trust you more and view you as more mature. The second thing you can do is to get a part-time job. So, you know, if you're watching this video, and, you know, my audience, if you're watching this video for any of my videos, I mainly like to target people who are in their teens to early 20s, right? So if you're in that teens to early 20s range, your parents probably cover most of your expenses. It's likely that you don't have to pay for any bills or anything like that. They've been covering your expenses for a while, right? Maybe if you're in your early 20s or in college, then maybe, you know, you're doing some stuff on your own by then already. But especially, I'd say if you're watching this and you're in, like, you know, high school or just early college, and your parents are, you know, have been paying for everything for you so far in your life, I would highly suggest that you get a part-time job. And, you know, it can be something simple, right? You can work at a store, retail store, in a restaurant. Maybe you can find a cool remote job as well. You know, there's a lot of job opportunities for, you know, people who are just working these simple jobs, you know. To give you guys, to give you, you know, an idea of what I did is when I personally didn't work until, you know, I graduated high school, right? And when I graduated high school, I knew I was going to go to college. I knew I needed to start, you know, making money for tuition, because honestly, my parents, you know, we came here to this country, you know, in the United States. That's where I'm recording this from. If you don't know yet, I'm in the U.S. So we came to the U.S. from India, actually. And my parents, they don't have any special degrees. They don't have any high-paying jobs or anything like that. They just work very simple blue-collar jobs. And back then, they were working those jobs as well. So, you know, I knew that I couldn't really rely on them. I'm not like, you know, I didn't come from a rich family or anything. So I knew I need to get some job so at least I can, you know, pay for a bit of my tuition, right? And then also, you know, pay for my books, my tuition. I did get some help from my parents, I'll be honest. You know, I'm thankful for that. But, you know, I pretty much took care of most of my tuition. I took care of most of my books, and, you know, with my, you know, I'll talk about the job first too. I worked at Best Buy, actually. So throughout, after high school, throughout, you know, most of college, I actually worked at Best Buy, and that was a pretty good job because it, you know, gave me some money so that I could, you know, pay for my, you know, gas for my car. Car was provided for my parents, which I'm very thankful for. I really appreciate that. So, you know, I was able to take care of the gas for my car. I was able to buy my own food and clothes. I could stop asking them for money. Really, after that, I stopped asking them for major money. Besides tuition, like, they helped me a bit of tuition. But they also knew I was getting good grades, which is the first point. They trusted me, giving me money to help my tuition because I was getting good grades. So, you know, you can see how this can link together, right? So yeah, I would just really suggest that you get a part-time job. You know, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to work too many hours or too many days a week. You know, even if you work, like, say, like 2 or 3 days a week, that's beautiful. 2 or 3 days a week part-time job. You know, if you're in high school, that's like a lot of money, honestly. And if you're in college, that's still decent money as well, right? Now, it's going to depend on your living situation once you get in college, if, you know, you're on the dorm or not. Thankfully, I looked for ways to save money. I personally, you know, commuted to campus, so that was a big help. You know, I didn't have to pay for my, you know, my dorm, so that was kind of nice, right? So that's the second point for you. You know, if you don't have a part-time job currently, get a part-time job, because then you're going to start bringing in money. You're going to be able to start taking care of some of your own expenses, offloading that off your parents, and, you know, you'll be taking care of that. And they're going to view you a bit more as an adult, honestly. That's honestly a big step for them viewing you as an adult. I'll be honest. They're not just going to view you as a bit more as an adult. That's a really big pivoting point. So that's going to be good for you. And then the third point I'll cover in this video is, you know, and this is going to surprise a lot of you. You probably wouldn't think this would be my third point. My last point for you to have your parents trust you more, view you as an adult, and, you know, just respect you more, is to be able to stand your ground during arguments. And what do I mean by this? So, you know, I think we all, you know, I'm sure you've all gotten in arguments with your parents on various stuff, right? I have, you know, everybody has, honestly, right? So, and a lot of times, and I'll dive into a certain type of argument. Yeah, there's those little, those little BS arguments you might get with your parents on like small stuff. Yeah, those will happen, right? Those arguments and disagreements. But one example where you really got to stand your ground in arguments is whenever your parents want you to go a certain way in life or take a certain path that doesn't match what you want to do in your head, what you think is best for you, right? So, and you got to be, I'll give you an example. So a lot of times parents, right, they may want their children to, pursue a certain field, or like do a certain, maybe pursue a certain sport professionally, right? For example, like a lot of parents, and this is a big thing, and as you can tell for me, you could imagine for me, it's a big thing in the brown community, in the Asian community, right? It's a funny stereotype, right? Like the Asian dad or mom, or the Indian dad or mom is like, son, you have to be doctor, you have to be lawyer, you have to be this and that. So that's one example of a pressure or thing your parents may want you to do. They're kind of trying to force you into one of these certain career paths. But imagine for you, maybe you don't want to do that because you would be very miserable, or you don't like the work, or you wouldn't want to do it that way, right? Maybe you want to do another degree program, or maybe you want to do something more entrepreneurial, or maybe something with trade school, right? Like you want to be a plumber or auto tech or something like that, right? That's honestly a very big example that thankfully for me and my parents, they never really pushed me down a certain path, which I'm very grateful for. For Indian parents, my parents are they're more chill. They still have their quirks and stuff, but they're a lot more chill than some stricter Asian and Indian parents. So during any and I'll recap this as well for another example. Like that's just one example, right? That your parents want you to go down a certain path, right? But anything where that has to do with your life, a decision you have to make in your life, a path you need to take in your life, what's best for you, right? Your parents are, they're older than you. They're the previous generation, right? Their ways of thinking are going to be different. They didn't grow up with social media. They didn't grow up with all these new opportunities, and they might not be aware of the different avenues you can pursue in your life. So, but that. So it's really going to be up to you during these arguments, right, or disagreements, to really stand your ground. And don't, in these arguments or disagreement, don't like curse at them, don't yell crazily or anything like that. Be very logical with it. You gotta be like respectful as well, right? If they want you to do something, they're like, hey Tim, or hey Julie, do this, follow this degree, don't do that, or don't do whatever. If they say to do that, but deep down inside of you that if you follow the route that they've kind of laid out for you, it wouldn't end well. It wouldn't end well for you, and a different path. Like tell them, hey, I understand. Hey, mom, dad. For me, for my culture, I call them mama and papa. That's what I call my parents, right? So tell your parents like, hey, mom, dad, mama, papa, like, I appreciate you. I love what you guys have always done for me. I really appreciate you. But if I do that, that's not aligned. That's not going to be the best for me. I need to do this. And this is why I need to do this. And this is why this is better than what you're saying. So be very logical and still respectful in your disagreements with your parents, right? Hopefully they don't, I know I mentioned the word arguments, but that should, it should first be a disagreement. Don't let it get to like an argument stage. And if it does, still keep your cool, still explain your points. A lot of times for this too, I'll give you this tip. With disagreements, they may not accept it during the first argument. They may not accept it that during that first argument or afterwards. It may take a few disagreements or times where you talk about this to your parents for them to finally understand your point, and or maybe just accept your point as well. So keep that in mind as well, right? Also, another little tip too, I've almost forgot to mention this, but do chores, right? Do basic chores. Like you don't have to like clean the whole house or anything, right? If you want to, go ahead, right? I don't like to clean too much, so I just kind of do what I'm expected to do, and my mom handles the rest, thankfully, right? Traditional Asian family, one of the perks of, benefits of that. But, at least you can see here, like I make my bed, right? I make my bed every day. Every day I wake up, you know, the bed doesn't look like this, and obviously your bed is probably, you know, no one's bed is like this when they first wake up. The blankets are everywhere, the pillows may have shifted, but you know, I make my bed every day. You know, I try to keep my room at least somewhat decently clean, right? So like start off with that. If you're not, that's a big thing, honestly. If you're not even making your own bed and like keeping your general room and area clean, that is a big thing you need to start doing immediately, honestly. That's gonna, and if you haven't been doing it, and when you start doing it, your parents, especially your mom, is gonna probably really notice as well, when you start cleaning your room. So yeah, so those are the main things, you know, that if your parents aren't trusting you currently, they don't view you as an adult or even as a rising adult, they don't think you're mature. If you start doing those things that I just mentioned to you by, you know, working more on school and getting good grades, by picking up a part-time job so you can start to, you know, cover your expenses, right? Your, at least your basic expenses, right? Take that load off your parents, right? And also standing your ground during critical disagreements where your parents want you to do something or go down a certain path or way, but you know there's a better path for you to take, and you explain that to them and you hold firm on that as well, right? And also, you know, making your room, right? Doing stuff like making your bed, keeping your room clean, right? If you do that, that's also a nice big plus. So that's all for this video. If you do these things, I guarantee you that your parents are gonna view you, you know, in a much more positive light. When I started doing these things, and I did all these things that I mentioned to you, I'm able to speak on this because I did get good grades. I did get a part-time job. I did, you know, stand my ground during conversations and also keeping my room clean. I did all these things. And once I did that, honestly, it was, the relationship between me and my parents, it was even better. It was good before, but it was more of like a parent-kid relationship. But once you start doing these things, it's more of like a parent and you're like young, but you're like an advisor kind of relationship. You know, I didn't have to, you know, ask my parent, get too much, I didn't have to really get permission to start hanging out with my friends after 9 p.m., right? I would come home sometimes at 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You know, I think the latest I came home was probably 3 a.m. ever, but even then they wouldn't like send me, and you know, you guys know this, if your parents are like helicopter parents all about you, I would never have to like, you know, I'd never have to like get a lot, I would never get texts from them like at 12 a.m. like, where are you? Or call like 5 missed calls. Where are you? It's 12 a.m. You said you'd be back at like 11, you know? I never got that because they always trusted me. And even if I had to expand my boundary a little bit, my permissions, they were fine with that, you know? Currently, you know, if you have immigrant parents, you definitely know this. You know, if your parents are immigrants and you're raised and born in this country, you're gonna know this country by the time you're like 16, 17, 18, probably more than them. You're gonna know a lot more about technology, probably, right? Than them. You're gonna probably know a lot more about many different things. And the good thing is, once you establish this trust with them, you do these things I mentioned in this video, they're gonna really come to you like for help on a lot of things and advice, right? Maybe they might want to ask you, hey, how do we, what should we buy? What should the next TV be? You know, like, can you like do some research on that? Because they know you're smart, right? Maybe they may ask you, who should we vote for in the next elections, right? They may come to you on that because they know you're more knowledgeable on stuff, right? They may trust your opinion more, you know, and they're just gonna view you as an adult overall more better as well. Like, anything you tell them, any advice you give them, anything you tell them to do, if you, after you do these things, which are the building blocks that I mentioned in this video, they're gonna be a lot more receptive to you as well. So trust me, I know right now, maybe if your parents don't trust you too much or view you as a kid, it's tough. I know, you know, it's hard to do a lot of basic things without their permission or them checking up on you too much. But I guarantee that if you follow these steps, that, you know, you're going to have a much better relationship with your parents, and it's going to be very beautiful as it forms over the months and years, because it does take time, right? You're not going to, this all isn't going to happen in a day or in a week, right? It takes time, but once it, you know, you see it, how it develops, it's going to be very nice for you, okay? All right, I'll see you in the next video.